It's time for the Las Vegas Sportsline.
Money won is twice as sweet as money earned.
It is the Monday edition of the Las Vegas Sportsline. It's normally brought to you by Station Casinos, but Chuck Esposito tied up today. So this week's Friday edition will be brought to you by Station Casinos. Marco DAngelo and myself, Dave Cokin, today with Ari Platinum doing the production. Fun weekend, no question about that. The Game of Thrones dominating social media. I'm not knocking it. Obviously, I just am not. It's not my genre, and I haven't watched. Marco, you are not a watcher either.
No.
So
might have something to do with our ages. You think?
I don't know. No, not for me. Because I'll get into a lot of new stuff, but I just don't. Anything that's kind of science fiction related, I've just never particularly been into. So
me neither.
But for those who are enjoying it, we hope it. I think it's going on until May.
Yeah, 6 episodes.
Okay, so just huge numbers, and it's an enormous success. We'll stick to the sports end of things, and guess we'll start off with a little bit of a recapping on the NBA and NHL. The Warriors are up one game against the Houston Rockets in the Marquee series in the NBA. There's 3 other series going on, but the attention rightfully on the Rockets and Warriors, and I guess you could say a little bit of controversy coming out of Game 1 with some officiating question marks and some belief in some circles that the Warriors got a little bit fortunate.
Yeah, a lot of people did. I'll be honest, I was on the Warriors. I laid the 5.5. I needed them to get a little more fortunate. I needed one more bucket there at the end. Dave, everybody looks at this series, and this is pretty much, in most people's eyes, the NBA Finals, even though there'll be 2 more series played after this one. The winner of this one definitely is going to have, the prohibitive favorite for the finals. I look at Golden State, Dave, and the reason I was on them in Game 1 is I really thought that all year was just to get to this point. You looked at them at different times, and, man, when they came to play, they were the Warriors we saw the last several years, dominant from wire to wire. But we just weren't seeing those efforts on a nightly basis this year. No. And even in the first round of the playoffs against the Clippers.
Were they not the worst? They were, I think, the worst or second worst spread team in the league for the entire season.
And Houston has played as good as basketball, if not the best, down the stretch. The last 6 weeks, the Warriors have been good. But they got the job done. It wasn't the prettiest of ones. And I know, we talk about the zigzag theory not being what it used to be. But I have a feeling tomorrow there's going to be a lot of people zigging and zagging coming with the Rockets to even the series tomorrow.
There was one question coming out of the game. I guess Chris Paul, in his he was pretty energized, yapping at the officials, and I guess there was a little contact, and there was some question as to whether he would be suspended for Game 2, but I knew right away he wouldn't because that's covered by his State Farm insurance.
I didn't see that one coming from you, Dave. That's a good one. No, they're not going to I think the officials, especially with what just happened in hockey, we don't want to have we don't want to have officials dictating any games, do we?
We've already got another apology forthcoming and all like in the NHL. Because there was an icing that probably should have been called last night in the San Jose game against Colorado. It wasn't called. Colorado got possession of the puck because the San Jose guy kind of let up, and that eventually turned into a goal that gave Colorado the lead, and they never looked back.
San Jose didn't get a break?
No.
Oh, man.
Tough break. It's been all against the Sharks. It's just think where the Sharks would be if they could actually get some fair officiating.
Dave, I don't know about you, and I've kept an eye on the hockey, but for me, I'm right now I feel like just a regular fan. My team's done, and I'm not invested in the hockey anymore.
But you've got both your teams in there.
I got it twice.
Because you're Penguins and Golden Knights. At least I've got the Bruins and Golden Knights. Not in the future. My futures are dead, but the Bruins are still alive. So. From a fan standpoint, I'm still in action. But it doesn't really matter to me who's playing in the NHL playoffs. The games are incredible. One after another. And sure, again, last night, I mean, that Avalanche Sharks game was pretty fun. Colorado got the lead, pulled away a little bit, and then San Jose makes it really interesting in the last minute. They get a goal to make it 3-2 with 10 seconds to go, and they got a possession, and they got one more shot off, but it didn't get through, and they Avalanche got the win. So Colorado now evens that series up at 1 game apiece.
Which is all they wanted to do. Get still one in San Jose and bring it back home. And We'll see how, San Jose, we talked when we did last week on the show in the podcast, coming off of that game, that 7-game series, what's San Jose going to have left? Because that was a physical series for sure.
The flip side of it is they're on, and this is the scary part about San Jose, and I kind of thought this after game one. It's like, this team's on a free roll.
Playing with house
This is
money.
the ultimate free roll because they were dead in Game 7 against the Golden Knights. Dead. 3-0, half a period to go. And then, the call took place and everything changed. So I don't think that there's any point in this series where the Sharks are going to feel pressure because they're supposed to be playing golf right now.
That's a good way to do it, and, it does take the pressure off if you look at it that way. But now that they did get it, and with everybody else that got knocked out, they're supposed to, they're supposed to be a guy that's going to have a shot at going all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Well, let's look at some of tonight's action as we swing away from what already took place and begin focusing on what's going to take place. We start with our Monday MJ Christensen Diamonds 4 at 4.
1, 2, 3 into the 4.
Put them fours up. Put the fours up, I said. Do it right now.
Tonight's action is just around the bend, and the guys want to get your night off to a great start.
4.
It's the Las Vegas Sportsline's 4 at 4.
Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. Unbelievable.
And we begin with Game 2. And before I get to that, a reminder that it's almost done. The April 80th anniversary celebration at MJ Christensen has been going on all month. If you want to take advantage of some spectacular savings, well, you better get down there because April's almost done. And, those specials, they'll still have great deals and incredible quality, but some of the specials won't be on board after the month ends. So hustle on over to Boca Park and MJ Christensen for all your jewelry needs. Now, we'll begin with the 76ers and Raptors. Raptors actually getting it done in Game 1 of a series. Maybe not a surprise because they have owned the 76ers, and the question is, can Philadelphia do anything to kind of end that domination? This is a really big game for Philly tonight.
It is, Dave, and I'm looking at it a couple ways. One, you talk about that Game 1, and Toronto got tired of hearing about it, and most of those players weren't involved in, that streak as far back as it went. But yet they had to still hear it because they lost Game 1 of their first series. They came out, they sent a message, and they sent it early. Philadelphia couldn't shoot the ball in the ocean. 39% from the field in that game, while Toronto shot 51%. I just have a feeling that Toronto had so much to prove in Game 1. I just don't see them matching the same intensity. And now all the pressure shifts to Philadelphia.
Yep.
They got to come up with a good game. And, Dave, we've said it all year. It's Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde with the 76ers. So if they have their worst performance of the playoffs, that would usually mean Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. We're going to see a good one tonight from them. And I got 2 stats for you, Dave. Philadelphia, this season, if they're coming off a loss by 10 points or more, they're 12-4 against the spread. They bounce back good, and they're 8-1 against the spread off a loss to a division rival this season. I'm going to go ahead and try Philadelphia. I'll take the points with them tonight. I think this is going to be a close one down to the wire.
On the ice, they're heading to Dallas for Game 3 of the series between the Blues and Stars, knotted at 1 game apiece. St. Louis won the opener, and Dallas, on the road, picks up the win in Game 2. A fascinating matchup tonight. I think this series is kind of playing out the way people expected in terms of the pace of play. It is a game where goals are not going to be that easy to come by. 2 very good goaltenders, the sensational rookie Binnington, and, of course, the very talented Ben Bishop, who's got a chance to win the Vezina this year as the top goalie in the NHL. So this is a game where, to me, it's really important to get that first goal on the board. The problem is figuring out who's going to get that first goal. I think Dallas has been a little better early in games than St. Louis, so maybe they're on the board first. I think the Blues can come back and win the game, but the whole premise, in a sense, and this is why I stayed out of the game, is in the Stanley Cup playoffs, it's really important to be on the team who gets the first goal. It's just not like the regular season where a 1-0 lead doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. In the playoffs, 1-0 lead can be very meaningful. It wasn't last night, obviously. The Sharks got the first goal and lost the game, so it's not a hard and fast rule where every team that scores first is going to win. But you want to get early leads, and I kind of lean toward Dallas doing that. So I eventually just got out of the game. My first impulse was St. Louis, and I still think they're live at plus money, but they've got to pick up their play in the first period.
Yeah, Dave, but you talk about the two goalies, and these are the number one and number two goalies in the league. They're the only two goalies that had a regular season average of under 2 goals per game. You look at, we talked numerous times about Binghamton, what a difference he made since they brought him in, the rookie sensation this year, and he's lived up to it. But you talk about that one goal. Because these goalies are so good, Dave, when they get that one goal, they play like they got a 3-goal lead. They're just, dumping it off, and just playing defense. I'm tempted, and I know this is, we have a ceiling and a floor as far as totals. This is the floor for a total of 5. I wouldn't play this over, I'll tell you that. I lean to the 5. The problem
tough part is that empty net at the end of the games. It's just so many games.
I know. That's exactly where I was going to go. And hopefully with that empty netter, maybe that it's a 3-1 score and the empty netter only cost you the push instead of a loss. But that's the way I would go. I think the game itself is a toss-up. I lean to under. And here's a little stat for you. Dallas, off of a road win where they scored 4 goals or more this season, in the next game they're 9-0 to the under this year. I'm going to go ahead and give the under a shot here, under 5, and hold my breath.
Let's move to the Diamond, and the Cardinals coming off a nice weekend against the Cincinnati Reds. They'll go on the road against the Nationals, who had perhaps their best win of the season yesterday. They were down 6-0 early. The Padres looked for all the world, like San Diego was getting that win. The Nationals fought back with some power and then got a walk-off from Matt Adams in extra innings to defeat the Padres in that game. The Nationals will send their actual ace this season. He is. Max Scherzer gets the most attention. Steven Strasburg's there. But their best pitcher this season has been the acquisition from Arizona, who had a great year last year, and that's Corbin. He has been tremendous, and he'll be facing a Cardinals lineup that's going to be a challenge tonight. This St. Louis team can rake. Cardinals have Michael Wacha coming off the DL, but as we talked about doing the WagerTalk podcast this morning, it's not an arm or elbow type of injury. He had a little tendonitis in a knee, and he seems to be fine. Missed, 12 days altogether, and I would think the Cardinals should be able to expect a decent performance from Wacha tonight.
Yeah, but you know what, Dave? You look at Washington and the way they won the game yesterday. Sometimes that's what starts a team on a streak, when you pull one out of the fire the way they did. And you talk about Pat Corbin. How good has he been? Well, last 3 starts, Dave, he's given up a total of 4 runs, and he's gone 6 and 7 innings. This is not a guy that just goes 5 innings and then turns it over to the bullpen. He gives you innings, and he's got a 26-3 strikeout to walk ratio. I got to go with him. I know St. Louis is playing as hot as they have played all season long right now, but I don't trust Wacha on the road. I'll tell you, I'll split this one up. I'm going to go first 5 innings, half unit on Washington, full game Washington for a half unit.
And we move to Fenway Park, where the Red Sox are 6 games under 500 once again after losing again to Tampa yesterday. They're now 11-17. They will host a team that quietly is a bit of a disappointment this season. That's the Oakland A's. A lot of great things projected for the A's coming out of 2018, but they're 2 games under 500. They have struggled a bit. Their bullpen was bad yesterday. They got swept at Toronto, and they'll go into Fenway tonight with Frankie Montas on the mound against the Red Sox southpaw Eduardo Rodriguez. Not a bad pitching matchup here. My first thought on this game was that this is a game that could be runs might be a little tough to come by here. Of course, the A's do have a righty-heavy lineup, and that's good for them against the lefty. The Red Sox, I don't know. I mean, pick the day. There's a few days they hit. There's a few days they aren't. J.D. Martinez is expected to be back in the lineup today after missing a couple of games with some back issues. The bottom of the Boston order just not doing a lot. It's just been ugly for the Red Sox so far. And the prices are starting to get lower on them. You notice this one. This is no longer a gigantic home favorite. But some are going to argue that, well, they shouldn't be favored at all based on the way they're playing. And it's tough to argue that logic because they are 11-17. I didn't play the game. I think I lean to Oakland. I like them against the lefty. And I think Oakland just ran into Rogers Center on the wrong weekend. The place was nuts this weekend with the arrival of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. They had big crowds all weekend in Toronto. It was just a different atmosphere, and the Blue Jays were really fired up. As weird as it sounds, they're going into a lesser atmosphere tonight at Fenway where the fans are kind of down on the team. I think Oakland's live here. I didn't bet it, and I might regret not doing so.
I can't disagree with anything that you said, Dave, but I'm actually